Does your book idea feel scattered and unfocused? Does it seem like you can't pull your story together into something that actually makes sense? In today's video, you'll discover why so many writers struggle with ideas that feel kind of all over the place and what you can do right now to bring clarity back to your work. Hey, y'all, welcome to today's Live with Lisa. If you're new here, my name is Lisa, and I create videos that help you learn how to write and live God's way. If you want to honor God with both your life and your writing, this is the place for you. Every week, we go live here in partnership with Our Given Purpose Ministries, which is an incredible ministry founded by my dear friend Tori Slaughter to help you grow in your walk with God and to get plugged into godly community. So not only can you watch today's live stream on YouTube and Instagram, but also on the Our Given Purpose Ministries Facebook page as well. So make sure you get connected there. So, as I said, today we are learning about what it means for our ideas to be kind of disorganized and what that really looks like and why it can be such a problem for so many writers. So, let's dive right into that. There are three different reasons why your book idea can feel kind of all over the place. The first one is you don't know the central message of your book. This is what I like to call the one thing. Now, without a central message of your book, your every idea feels like it's equally important. You don't have any way to distinguish between the ideas that are really good and really strong and the ones that need to be left out and put somewhere else. And so it can feel like you're being pulled in a lot of different directions when you are working through writing your book, drafting it, or just even brainstorming. You can really struggle to identify which idea is most important, which versus the ideas that are just important. And so, for example, let's say you're writing a book about marriage. And let's say in that book, you have started thinking about finances in marriage and how the different struggles that come up that can maybe cause friction for couples and what it looks like to work through them and to work past them. If you're not careful, you could end up so focused on that idea about finances that it leads you into a whole different book and you forget what the core message of your book is about. And so that's why it's so important to be clear about the main message of your book and to be able to articulate that message throughout the book. Even if you're talking about different subjects and different topics, that core message needs to always ring true throughout the book from beginning to end. It needs to always be the focus so that all the other ideas in your book are still pointing back to that same message. Knowing your message helps you to identify which ideas are important and which ones you need to leave out, which ones you need to keep in, and which ones you need to maybe get rid of completely or possibly save for a different book. We'll get to that a little bit more later. So, what do we do in this situation? How do we identify the central message of your book? You need to ask yourself, what is the one thing I want my readers to walk away with from this book? It's kind of like your elevator pitch. What is the one idea that I want them to remember above all the others that I present in this book? And that one idea should echo all those different ideas around it in the book in different ways. So make sure that you drill down and you ask yourself, what is the one thing I want my readers to walk away from this book? Really, really important that we understand to do that. The next reason that our ideas can sometimes feel all over the place as writers and can get kind of disorganized, if we're honest, is you actually have several book ideas, not just one. Yes, you heard that right. I said you actually have several book ideas, not just one. I talk about this in a live stream that I did a while ago, which is, I think, one of the ones that's closest to my heart and one that I am most proud of, which is you have a library within you. That's the title of it. And so I want you to go back and watch that live stream because I think many writers make this mistake that they only have one good idea. and that there's only one book that they're supposed to write. And I believe that's actually not true for most of us as kingdom writers. I believe we serve a God of abundance, and that He has given us multiple ideas for a lot of different stories that He wants us to tell. And I think that we limit ourselves in thinking that we only have one idea. And part of the reason I believe we do that is because we start working through the idea that we think is our only idea, and we go off on all these different courses, all these different branches of that idea, and they lead us off into different rabbit holes. And so we start pursuing the different rabbit holes, and we don't necessarily realize that those are actually separate book ideas. We try to force all of them into the one main idea that we have. We try to make everything work and everything fit into our one main idea that we're working on. And so when that happens, when you try to include every lesson and every story and every revelation that you've had, let's say if you're writing a book about your personal story, for example, if you try to add all of that in there, it leads to a lot of rambling, a lot of overloaded chapters that have just a lot of extraness in them, and really actually can lead to a lack of depth, a lack of really powerful, compelling ideas, because you're just throwing everything but the kitchen sink in there. And so it can actually end up confusing your readers at the end of the day, because again, they don't have that one thing. They don't have that one central focus that they need to have in order to understand what your book is really about. And so it's important, when we notice this, that we need to be aware of this and make sure we recognize when we're falling into that trap of kind of pursuing all these different ideas at the same time. A lot of times this happens because we either have a lot of passion about what we're writing about, and we think everything needs to be in this book, everything needs to be included because everything's important, and it's important to us. So we want to share that with our readers, and we're excited to do that. Another reason that we try and do that and we want to include everything is maybe we suffer from a little bit of imposter syndrome. We don't feel confident in our own knowledge and expertise about what we're writing about. And so we want to include everything that we can think of and everything we know about a particular topic. We want to throw everything in there, again, but the kitchen sink. And so we want to, and we think that that will somehow justify us to our readers, that it will validate our credentials, it will validate our expertise. But we don't need to say more to necessarily convey what we know. Sometimes it's about saying less. And sometimes the less you say actually demonstrates how much you really know, because you realize you don't need to over explain. You don't need to give 15 different examples. You don't need to tell 35 different stories. Sometimes one good story is all it takes for you to make your point. And a lot of times, it takes the wisdom and the knowledge of truly being knowledgeable and insightful about your area of expertise to know what you need to leave in and what you need to take out. And so it's important that we recognize that. So, what is the key shift that we need to make with this mindset? Recognize that it's better to have one focused message and have that to write one focused message 10 times, which is basically creating 10 different books. It's better to do that than to have one unfocused message with 10 different scattered ideas tied up in it. Again, let me say that for clarity. It's better to have one focused message that you write 10 different times in 10 different books than to have one unfocused message that has 10 different ideas stuffed into it. You're going to have a lot more clarity with that one focused message that you write in 10 different books. And you'll have a lot more success that way as well. Let's go into the comments here for a moment. Okay. All right, let's go back to our points. So we talked about having understanding why our ideas can feel all over the place, our need for a central message, the one thing. We also talked about how many times we can have several book ideas rather than just one, like we might have thought. And then the last point I want to make in terms of why you might be feeling like your book ideas are all over the place is you don't have a way to organize your ideas. When you don't have a way to organize your ideas, it can be easy to become overwhelmed. And I've talked about that in another live stream that I did recently. So make sure you check that out as well. That says you're not lazy, you're just overwhelmed. And I want you to go back and look at that live stream because I really dig into what it means to be overwhelmed for many of us as writers and how we can break out of that mindset and how we can break out of that headspace. And so many times we feel overwhelmed because we don't have a way to organize our ideas. We just, and as many of us do, right? I've been here myself. You have ideas scattered around on pieces of paper. You've got 30 different documents that all have a couple of paragraphs or a couple of chapters in each one for all these different things and these different ideas that you have. You might even have some of them written on napkins somewhere, right? I think many of us have been there, right? And so that's what it can feel like. It can feel like you're just all over the place. Like I said, you feel disorganized. You feel the clutter of your ideas and you don't know what to do with them. The reason many writers go through this is because they don't have a process for deciding what stays in your book, what needs to go and just be thrown out, and what you need to save for later for another book. Remember, like I said, many of us don't just have one book idea, but we have many of them. And so we need to have a way of capturing those ideas for later because we're trying to focus on the one idea we're working on right now. But what happens when you have all these other ideas that come in, particularly during the brainstorming process, and you don't know what to do with them? You don't know how to make them fit or even if you should make them fit. But that's exactly the point. You don't want to make all of those ideas fit into one book. You need to have a way of filtering those ideas that you have, understanding which ones stay, which ones go, and which ones are saved for later. If you don't have a filter, you end up again trying to either throw everything in there, or what a lot of writers do is they get in this cycle of just second guessing themselves constantly and trying to keep everything and make it work. And if you're second guessing yourself, it shows up a lot in your books as you just working on the same chapter over and over again because something doesn't feel right, but you're not sure what it is. And that happens a lot of times because there really are too many ideas in that book, and some of them really do need to be pulled out and put into something separate completely, but you don't realize you need to do that. So you're trying to make kind of a square peg fit into a round hole, and it ends up making you confused, frustrated, and just spinning your wheels. And none of us want to be there. And so, what is the key shift you need to make in that situation? What do you do to break out of that? Well, the point is you don't need fewer ideas. You need a filter to help you manage them. You need to be able to have criteria that helps you identify which ideas to keep, which ideas to throw out, and which ideas to save, possibly for a different book. And so when you have that criteria, when you know how to identify which ideas need to stay and which ones need to go and which ones need to be in a different book, it helps you to have clarity so that you're not second guessing everything. You're not wondering, is this idea good or is it not? Is it something I can keep or should I throw it out? And going back and forth over and over again and just kind of hemming and hawing through that part of the process. You don't have to deal with all of that. You can skip all of that stress because you have that clarity that you need in order to move forward effectively. And so this all over the place idea feeling that so many writers have, it is one of the most common mistakes that I've seen a lot of writers make. And it's usually connected to a few different issues that show up over and over again in the writing process. But the good news is that this is a mistake that can be avoided. It is a strategy, it is an issue, a problem that can be corrected with the right strategy. And so I am excited to introduce next week a brand new resource that will help you to avoid these mistakes, to break out of these restricting mindsets, and will give you solutions for how to move forward more effectively with your writing. If your book idea feels all over the place and you're not sure how to drill down and identify that one thing that's most important, this resource will help you. If you feel like you have all these ideas and you're not sure which ones belong in this book and which ones actually belong in a different book, it will help you with this as well. And so I'm excited to share that with you next week. And you'll learn what's really keeping your ideas so scattered, and really get solutions to help you walk through the process of improving things and really getting your book back on track. You'll learn how to move from forward with clarity and really have the direction that you need, instead of just confusion, overwhelm, and chaos. And so, once again, I'm excited to share that resource with you next week. I know it will help you if you're dealing with this and you are feeling stuck, overwhelmed, and confused with your book idea. So make sure you look out for that. Now, if you found this video helpful today and you want to learn more about how to write and live God's way, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to subscribe, because then you'll get notifications about when I go live next, and you'll be among the first people to know when I'm releasing that new resource that will help you to avoid those common mistakes in the writing process. Make sure that you are staying tuned in for that, and that you are among the first to find out about that so that you can take advantage of it quickly. All right, that is it for today. I pray that this live blessed you and that it gave you some insight about some of the things that you might be struggling with in your writing process. And again, make sure you look out for that resource, because I'm going to be announcing it very soon. So that is it for today. Once again, this has been Live with Lisa, and my name is Lisa, and I'm excited to see you in the next live stream. Until next week, take care, God bless, and happy writing, y'all.